it's so much over introduced, I think, about my life and my experiences. I think so many words maybe came from mainstream media rather than, grassroots media or other people's comments. But I'm really frightened, over this introduction, and I'm very happy to be here again, and maybe again, because so many times I try to talk to different people in campus. I'm really realizing that how much I'm getting older because of that young generation started to really getting up and try to study and engage in the social works, also the research works and the academic developments. It's so much fascinating to me, but at the same time I'm worrying, I'm concerning myself because like Jack mentioned the RT thing when I introduced to Twitter back to 2008, which is a shortened format for retweet. Everyone knows retweet. If you go to Twitter, it's very much useful function when you try to relay another person's information or his sharing. Because I was studying the shareism that moment. I wonder how this sharing path can generate much enlarged or amplified effect, or even more creative things like the artwork, on internet, people's creations based on their creations. So the relaying of the information is very much interesting, like our human brain's creation is not all just a single piece of idea, it's idea based on idea, and eventually, generate avalanche effects if you really got a great thing, to pop up from your mind. So the concern is if we engage in this type of social media things, would our researchers being affected, or would our research itself per se affect the internet itself? This is very much bothering me a lot, because when we do the research, actually we are sharing our work as well. Would this affect the ground, emotions or their sentiments or their, kind of cognitions of the information? Or would this generate more avalanche effects if the information is so much so, in effect that we cannot predict? So many things happen on internet today is very much like this type of phenomenon. So I'm concerning the same time I'm very much in excitement every day to think about how technology is changing our life. Actually, today's topic is talking about machine, which is very much ill-defined, in the past decade, because so many machines functions were actually defined, in different type of terminologies, which is related to artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, etc. So this type of things is really getting improved, getting accelerated, but not really well defined yet. So this is all my, how to say, the practices, of me, not only related to the research works, but also put into the practice, which I want to find the answers and some of the solutions based on this quest. I think it's never ending, but giving me a lot of energies to think over and over to see what's the real, consequence of all the things we are working on. I mean, the human beings is working on, because what we are inventing now may dramatically affect the future of ourselves, which is somewhat larger to the thinking of God, downsides to the daily information access and the happiness of our life. So this is very much the scope I'm thinking, but I think every one of us here, because we are researching based on data, based on the spectrum of the information, so we need to know where to dig into and where to find the things we need to really to fulfill the puzzle, we are questioning ourselves, I think is very much useful to me as well, because when I set up the Social Brain Foundation, I believe that there is a social brain in forming, because everyone's sharing becomes a neuron effect to each other, and eventually may generate the social consciousness or maybe the social effects. So back to this very, very narrow topic, because this year is very much first year. I call it the first year of AI, the real AI, because everyone of us very, very lucky in the world. Before our departing this planet, we see the machine intelligence has outpaced the human intelligence because of the AlphaGo thing, happen. And just in 1997, in New York Times, let's quote, they said, the human being won't exceed, the machine won't exceed or beat human at Go. Maybe even longer, but at least in 100 years, it's impossible. This is from 1997. And let me quote another same New York Times, reports. They said, Master of Go board game is developed by Google computer program this year, and it's unexpectedly happened. So this is just within 20 years. Our understanding of human and machine intelligence has totally changed because of things happen, not just because of it could happen, it's happened. It's already in our age. So that's why we need to really quickly catch up to think what's the relationship between man and machine, M to M. So this is a not big topic or super futurist topic, it's just happening. So many things, I think machine is helping us today in many areas, cooking for us, cleaning for us, even driving for us. But there's many things we need to thoroughly think over to see what's the potential, drawbacks or maybe consequences that we need to deal with. This is how I want to start with Tesla case this year. Also in April, one of the Tesla's autopilot driver, whose name is Joshua Brown. He's maybe as same as me before, as a very strong believer, as a technical solutionist, which believe technology can solve most of the problems in the world. But he himself, unfortunately, his car, when it's running in the autopilot mode, it's hitting a truck without any alerting in advance. So he, this accident claimed his life, immediately. And of course, many people reflect this case and to think over that if this guy, he's controlling the car, by himself, would it be better, avoid this accident, or would the machine be responsible for this? But with machine, who will be responsible for this? Or Tesla, the manufacturer and maker of the software, would be responsible for this? There are a lot of debate online and elsewhere, in the legal realm, that people are thinking and debating over this just because of they cannot define this case as any existing, category to really to have an explanation and good treatment over this. So the machine actually has been engaging so many things in our life and help us to make decisions. In this case, the machine made a wrong decision, but many people still argue that the human mistakes actually made roughly over 200,000 cases around the world every year in the traffic accident. They mostly came from their mistakes. If machine do this, it can be doing better or even better after years. So the argument is continuing, but the thing about itself is it won't stop, this debating, because the machine and the man relationship becomes a top and core issue of this whole thing. So that's why I'm thinking why those Silicon Valley and also those venture capital industry, which I worked for back to 20 years ago, they have so many, passionate investment and even overheated, kind of engagement in the artificial intelligence investment in the past several years, including the AlphaGo company called DeepMind. They are using the algorithm, which shortened for algo. The algorithm is not only about programming as before. If anyone of here, as a coder as well, the previous artificial intelligence are purely based on the algorithm we program. We let the machine do what in a sequence, or in a conditional, like type of, responses. So this coding things ran previous artificial intelligence, but today's artificial intelligence is quite different. All those companies listed here, mostly based on the data, learning, database learning, which is the machine doesn't need to know anything upfront. They just try to learn from the data and try to behave and try to tune themselves, which is AlphaGo was using as well, because originally we see many chess games on computer. We can play even on a mobile phone. Before AlphaGo, the game inside, for example, like a Go trainer game, mostly based on those logics, we human program in it. But AlphaGo's difference is that he learns, or I call he, could be wrong. So temporarily used, he learns from many human chess games, happened before. And he tried to judge the value by putting those data in different, branches of trees. And then eventually he realized which type of strategy in which type of situation could be generate higher value. So this helped this machine to deal with this type of things much more intelligent than ever before. This gives us this is the source of the challenge, because many people believe that machine is controllable before, but from now on, we should try to, throw this idea, because those machines, if we have a starting point for some of those algos, and then the machine can learn itself, like, if you search DeepMind play game in YouTube, you can see a list of traditional games like Super Mario, learned by machine. The machine doesn't even know how to control the game from the beginning. But then after several hours of training by itself, it learns how to play the game much better than human being. This is a different thing, because if we put the internet in front of a machine, there's a chance that the machine can learn many things and represent some kind of surrogate to talk to you, or maybe sending you some information, or give you some kind of influence which we don't know before. And it could be not human, or you don't realize it's machine. This is the worst case I'm thinking. Yeah, but would it be good to our life or not? This is another thinking. So many things happening in the real world. This type of applications of artificial intelligence is getting profound and, like very much bragged by many technical companies today. Maybe some very useful or successful, maybe some not. I'm trying to see what's the potential influence to our society not only to the daily life, but also to the political, social, economical influence. Some might call it hard application, which is very risky, dangerous, or maybe, quite relevant to your life. And some I call it soft applications, which is less dangerous, or maybe we claim them more beneficial to the society, like helping us, improving the efficiency, productivity, or maybe help us to reduce our kind of chores type of things. So this two type of category, I'm not seeing so many people trying to categorize them, but I'm seeing that, okay, people are starting to divide to work on different directions. If they have a technical team, if they have some kind of vision, they are going to do it. And of course, we know that for the one type of the application like the drone, a type of killing machine, very controversial today to deploy into different regions around the world. It could kill people without any, sensing or consciousness over this risk. And it could become more and more controversial if machine take over the decision making and reigning over around the clock, over the whole world. So this is the type of applications we see. It's everywhere actually. I'm so sure some drones on top of our head this moment as well. Of course, there's also some people in the remote, in Nevada maybe, to control the machine, which they believe they have the consciousness to know we are not the enemy, we are not the man to be killed. But there are definitely many civilian, killings in the past several years, which is hundreds of them. So how to control them, how to make sure the man-machine have a very good relationship in the future, which is engaging the communication model. Also the prototype, the protocol between man and machine can ensure that we are tuning this type of relationship. I cannot say control because it's a very dangerous word. We say we control the machine. In some way, machine's intelligence someday outpace our human being. It's unnecessary. It's unavoidable, and it cannot be stopped, as Stephen Hawking and Bill Gates all warned in the several years. They believe that machine learning and intelligence in some way could extremely, dangerous if we develop them without a type of new relationship. That's why I proposed this man-machine teaming model, which is very much an early stage in development, but I'm seeing this from one of my projects as introduced, is a music recommendation project, which helps us to explore and discover the best music for individuals. And it's also a man-machine teaming model. So I actually try to summarize some of our practices from the music recommendation. It's a kind of soft application. It's less dangerous. Listening a noise sound may not kill you, right? So this is why I chose this as well. But the human-machine interaction, which I describe machine as a hexagon and man as a round shape, because I believe they're more likely to resemble this shape. So for the machine part, if we try to make it more adaptable to human, and at the same time, human beings are more adaptable to the machine development. They're both in evolution, but human evolution definitely is slowing down today. Although we have a lot of new technologies, now, but mostly the technology is misleading us. Like you looked at the screen of Pokemon, actually you were being how into that. So the human need to adapt to the machine, I believe, is more than the machine adapting to human, because the machine intelligence, in my humble opinion, it's type of more specific use in vertical areas this moment, but far from connecting to each other to become conscious. So this is the process. So the machine, in my model, I would love to use a practical model, in the music later. But this general model is applying to different models. You can different applications you can apply to the killing machine, or maybe to the washing machine. They are all similar. So the machine should firstly, it should explicitly tell it's a machine in advance. Why I try to impose this? Because of course it's hard to tell every product or application to tell, hey, I'm a machine. But it's getting more and more serious, because I would love to show a little video here. We can watch YouTube, right? Do we have sound here?
Hello, how are you today?
If okay,
Good.
okay,
Well, I'm calling
I need
about an
to
online request.
change a machine. Maybe here. I can use this.
You once made about health insurance coverage. We work with all major companies and compare all the rates for you. I can get you a quote in about 5 minutes. Okay?
Are you a robot?
I am a real person. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine, but you sound like a robot.
I understand.
This is a correspondent from Times Magazine to call company's call center, and then he somewhat tried to tease this telemarketer or whatever, and then some interesting.
Hello, how are you today?
Okay, how are you?
Good. Well, I'm calling about an online request you once made about health insurance coverage. We work with all major companies and compare all the rates for you. I can get you a quote in about 5 minutes, okay?
Can you tell this is a machine?
Are you a robot?
I am a real person. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear
Is this a real person?
you just fine, but you sound like a robot.
I understand. Can we continue?
Sure.
Are you currently on Medicare?
No, why are the questions so personal?
We received your online application for health insurance, and if you're still looking for affordable health insurance with excellent coverage, we can give you a free quote.
Why should I give my information to you?
I understand, but we do work with all carriers, and I can get you a low rate. Getting a quote will only take a minute, okay?
You really do sound like a robot.
I am a real person. Maybe we have a bad connection. I'm sorry about that.
Are you sure?
Yes. Sure.
I'm gonna hang up now.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Okay, so I stop here. Maybe you guys can check back by yourself. But from this short conversation, I'm sure that if you are watching it as a sequencing way, maybe you change your mind several times as well. Is this machine or not? Machine or not? Human or not? So this actually I can tell this is very early stage, but in the coming several years, maybe 1 decade, we will see a lot of this type of things happening. And from the industry view, maybe 40 to 60% of the telemarketing will be replaced, jobs will be replaced by robots like this. I know very well about how this backend system works. It's actually somewhat half machine, half human intervention. But step by step, we will see so many things affect your daily life when you're trying to access information. If it's a Twitter account, it could be not a human Twitter account. If it's a Facebook, profile, maybe it's purely a machine, tweet sharing. So and so. So many things we need to think over. But the first thing I'm arguing is how we can really excuse me. Oops. Okay. So the first important thing is to explicitly tell machine, I'm a machine in advance, which is a policy level thing I'm arguing. Of course, many people would say, I don't want to tell you because it will, type of losing your trust from the first moment, or you will hang up, etc. But the same thing to today's telemarketing. Most of us hang up, Providing test sessions is my second argument, which we need to let human to engage the testing sessions of using the machine, which like the Tesla case, of course the user are familiar, the Joshua Brown case he is very familiar with the machine already, but he didn't really practice so many scenarios which categorize in different type of contingencies. So this is the problem, we need to argue to the application developers, especially using the machine learning, and to try to impose a user interface to end users. And they need to have test sessions to go through and through to understand what the machine can do and the machine cannot do. And also, we need that machine to have the chance to correct the errors and generate feedback loops to the end users. This is also engaged in like a children learning process. The adult try to, overlooking the children learning process, which is not a mystery box. We provide to end users. We need to let the users to overlook the learning process of the machine, to let them to be more aware on the learning process and the learning methodology. This is a challenge to the end user, which on the left. But definitely we need to define some policies to enforce the developers to know this, to provide this type of feedback loop transparency. And the multi-facet feedbacks, of course, is about the human-machine interface. We should try to give users more type of awareness via the voice, via the visual, graphical user interface, and maybe some other type of sensoring stimulation, etc., which is all possible in the future application, but depends on how we use them. And we need to have the continuous communication, which different type of data should be exported or generated to enable the post-mortem things happen. For example, the Tesla case, the best part of this case, of course, is a disaster. But the best part is that all the data has been there, can be dumped back immediately to Tesla headquarters and try to tell what's the scenario went back to the accident, which is not possible in the traditional world. So this continuous communication also related to the logging information we need to do. There's part of machine learning, which today's machine learning may have this kind of deficiency. And we are when we are discussing in an initiative called OpenAI in California, we strongly, argue this is very important to enable the human to know what machine learn, what machine has experienced, not only as a technical, mechanical data, but also generate the communication interface to the human beings. So the security measures, of course, so important. For example, if anyone have the chance to hack the drone, the killer drone, it could be very dangerous, and every one of us could be put into the danger atmosphere. This is a very much important kind of measurement we need to put in force. So this is a type of a machine part, on the teaming model. But this all machine can do. It cannot prevent machine misbehaving or malfunction in the nature. So because the machine always have type of possibility to have the errors, or maybe the learning process are not complete. Let's say if the machine needs 20 hours to learn the data, and if we put this in the use case before that, it could be very dangerous. They cannot consider all the situations which because the data is not incomplete. Or maybe when we use the machine along the process, the machine's processing power is not enough to process the data you are generating, because we are using the machine the same time we are generating the data. So this is very much a challenge if we put machine in a real world scenario, but at the same time we cannot process it, in the real time. This is all the technical guys, very hate. And they don't want to see this type of situation happen and generate disasters just because of the processing power cannot match. So that's why many investment now pouring into a type of new IC chip which calls GPU. The GPU is different from CPU, which we worked in Intel. We have a lot of development on the CPU to process the linear data and instructions, but the GPU instead is trying to parallel processing many information concurrently. So the GPU investment is so heavily now, and is very much a big gold mine. Many companies are chasing for. So the machine here, I'm arguing, is it can provide this type of a protocol, which is, I believe, is not enough. But the human side is more challenging, because how we can deal with this type of interface is, do we have the bandwidth the same as the machine to deal with this type of information flooding, or would we rather to give all the control to the machine, let them to make the decision fully on behalf of us in many situations? This is a very big topic, but the human part, I believe, it's entering into a new age as well in our education. How our children, our future generation, could learn from this type of interaction rather than the previous world. If we talk about social media, we are still thinking about how we are interacting with the human being. But suddenly there could be half or 10 folds of information from machine. What would be the real consequence of that, and what's your mental model could be changed? I'm not joking in this part, because when you are thinking about today's social media, actually there are a lot of trash information we are seeing every day. It could be a troll, it could be a zombie account, just retweeting other people's information. But this type of information, in some extent, they are affecting our judgment, our consciousness, and also our knowledge structure, and it eventually affect our memory structure as well. So this is the relationship between how the future, because machine can be very much easily duplicated in a computing model, which I can create several bots on behalf of Isaac, the account, in one day, and talking about different things seems like a real human being. And at the same time, I can do a lot of things. Maybe you guys are facing not real Isaac, is a machine talking to you today. Think about this. Just maybe 1 second, think about you have your own surrogate here listening. Someday this could be always happening. I'm not talking about this purely going to robot area. It's about how the intelligence could flow around the internet every moment in the next decade, which is very, very significant influence. So back to the real world. We are trying to do more things for the social good, which one area we are sponsoring and investing is music. And because the industry is very corrupted, in the last 20 years, and it's very much many music contents was locked in the so-called copyrighted, cages. And the musicians, actually they license their content to some big labels, purely monopoly companies. And then when they want to have the return, have the harvest, it seems like so wretched amount of money can back to their pocket. So it's very hard to see today's musicians can sustain their life like back to 20 years or 30 years ago in our musical history. But musical is so important. And we believe several things about data, on the left side is so relevant to us to study this area. One's music taste is highly personal. Every one of us have the different and unique music taste. It's subtly different from each other, but eventually everyone has its taste, like our fingerprint. It's purely data-driven system because the music industry is more than any other industry in the world, has been fully digitalized from the creation process along the distribution, publishing, and enjoyment. We fully have the digital things, in this life cycle of a music piece. So it's also related to complex brain process. We know many music can heal our human issues and also give us the harmonious feelings. But how this brain process, was really work inside our the brain, the skull, it's really far from unknown. So this is also related to the data. Many researchers focusing on the brain-music relationship. And also music is this positive factor like the orange juice to our daily life, of course. So our method is from 2 years ago, we are developing an IoT devices like this headphone. It's actually a device can play the music and receive your interactions by with the sensors and by the user interaction. So you can use your finger, just like this gesture, to select song or tap to like a song, and all these interactions will be collected sequentially back to our backend cloud. And this backend cloud, we're now just open source, so everyone can, access this type of data as well to apply into their kind of application. So this device we are developing as a pilot device, and then we apply it into a man-machine teaming model to recommend more sounds. Because, for example, we provide you 25 sounds at the first moment, same to everyone. But after you interacting with these 25 sounds, steadily the machine started to learn your taste with this initialization, and then make the regression step by step. The regression process will be faster or shorter or longer, depends on everyone's, their complexity against the music. Because some people may simply like some song, some type of sound, some genre of sounds, some language-based, sounds, etc. But some people may be more higher level of complexity against music. So this type of process actually purely being described in this MMT model, which we have the machine recommendation, which the blue part is all machine was doing in the back end. somewhere on the cloud. And then there's a machine man interface, which we use the general format as a data playlist of music. So when the recommendation at the beginning give you some music as a playlist, the human will listen and give the ranking, give the rating, and voting whether he likes it or not, or he want to listen completely of the music track, or he just try to have a sneak preview, etc. So this process, the information will go back to the machine learning part. We receive that information and generate real-time feedback loop to give you a changed playlist and to fit for your learning process. So this maybe experimentally at the beginning, people all love to try this at the beginning, but time by time, when this process keep going on, the machine will start to feed you more music you like, but you don't know why. Because the machine even don't know why. Why you like this type of sound, maybe not the genre based. We choose music before, all based on genres, or maybe some singers, which are celebrity singers, or which use different instrumental to describe their music, etc. But the machine learning part generates very strange feature lists, which human may not readable to those type of features. But some features may be readable, like one of the features when we study, to me, is like, oh, Isaac, you like the musician's female vocal under 40-year-old. This is a very strange feature to someone which nobody can, even your very, very avid music listener, you may not realize some type of features or filters we can, it's your favorite. And this type of music may generate type of happiness in your brain. So this is what the machine learning can do. So up from this, the human definitely have the choices. They can vote yes, no. They can say, hey, I don't like this type of sound in this type of context, or this location, or I just prefer to listen some song in the morning to be more metal or not so heavy, whatever. So this type of information will be related to many context information or data as well. So the human activity will try to supervise the machine, which is also helpful for the machine to learn you. So that's why the machine recommendation is not Spotify way, it's not Apple Genius way. It will be eventually become a part of you. It's an individual robot, which is not like a robot, but it's a robot running behind you to give you the best choice, which you feel good at the same time. Maybe you can improve it together with it. So this is the human machine part, but still I argue that there's social curating, social impact from machine selection, which is actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to finish. This developing of this loop cycle, it's actually will be affected by the social factors because there's mainstream media, there's social media, there are friends, circles in different scale of groups. So your group's choices may affect your activity and choices as well. So eventually, what we really want to do is not really try to connect AI with music. What's the purpose? The real purpose is trying to make the huge music catalog, which is growing still, but for human being, we have 40 million songs in history ever been created. How many songs you listen? You cannot listen to 40 million songs for sure in your life. Maybe 500 years you can listen through them without 1 minute stopping. But what type of music give you may affect your life, affect your timeline. So this is the recommendation we want to do. We want to really remove those tyranny of choices which ruled by those mainstream media, commercial purposes, etc., or purely group selections, but fitting for your personal purposes and choices, which can also give the musicians, the creators, a better chance from the power law. Because let me share data at last. On Spotify, which many people hear, how many people listen to Spotify? Or Apple Music? Yes. So many people choose Spotify as a music subscription service. But let me share data of Spotify in last year. On Spotify, only 7% of the songs has been listened over twice in 2015. And over 70% of songs never been listened. So this is the thing. You know, we need to understand the music, the human creations have a long tail thing, and we have a lot of great creations never been touched. And this should be liberalized, and we should change this situation and make all those creations equal again. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe a couple quick questions because we need to leave time for the break and also set up the final panel, discussion. So there will be more discussion. Yes.
Is it okay?
Alvaro.
No, it's okay for me, just for the recording.
I think people around the world want to hear your voice.
Hi. No, I was precisely just relating your talk with Michael's before, and thinking about bots, for instance, on Twitter, and whether if you took that in account, I mean, somehow to, in terms of output, like what was being flagged as relevant in terms of political discourse. So it's a two-way question.
You mean the machine infecting the political discourses?
Yeah, for instance, or if you just create three bots just generating discourse on, Nigerian political campaign, and then you might have like that output being analyzed as a real, let's say, it's always real because it's there, but it's not, it's a bot, yeah, so it's machine based.
Yeah, I think before this question to be answered, I think I have also a question to Michael as well, but yeah, so
we can come back at the panel discussion.
Yeah, but the thing is, definitely I'm concerning that the borderless of social media, which is not only human-machine border, but also the geographical border of information, influx, outflux, may affect a regional political, agenda. This is the nature of social media, right? So we cannot say that we only mine the data from Nigeria or Ghana to describe the political nature there. It's actually connected today, and you can not even tell which user in Ghana or in elsewhere, even to China, a well-walled, data pool. There's still a lot of influx and outflux, about this study. So the research could be very difficult.
But also, I think if we use Isaac's, categories, big election like that could be the hard or the more difficult, category, right? He is trying to start from music as a softer, as an everyday, low risk, if I can understand. So I think that could be part of the answer as well. Anyone want to ask? Okay, yes.
Hi, Isaac. My name's Angela. So I have a rather simple question. So the power law situation you discussed is probably a result of the economic commercial infrastructure behind the music industry. So there's this mainstreaming effect. So people all rush towards the most popular items. But in terms of the rationale, you're designing this it's called Ivy, right? Is it?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah,
so. Would you consider this kind of personalization also would have its own problems in terms of music, but then in general, for example, there are lots of discussion about how this kind of personalization might have political consequences in terms of information consumption, right? So like instead of mainstreaming, this is like a fragmenting kind of tendency. Like I'm just curious about how you think about this in terms of music consumption.
Yeah, that's what we really studied for a long time. You know, ever since I studied Social Brain Foundation, I see how those power laws played in social media, the same time apply to many industries, which, let's say, banking system. So many corrupted industries, they need to be reinvented. But the music specifically, you know, I see, because I really have the daily interaction with the big label companies to try to talking or, you know, bargaining with them on some of the licensing schemes, etc. I see how difficult a startup, like say a 2-person team, if you want to make a music application in the world, it's impossible today. Not like Facebook can start from nothing, can from a small group of people, but music application cannot, because it's really the power, not only the power law. The power law is only a type of, you know, let's say social choices, but still, but the real monopoly is on top of that, which is the Pandora thing, you know, playing there. That's why we think that the best way is trying to give grassroots the power. You know, if they, because what we found is that there are already 60% of musicians today with no label contracts. So if we start from those guys, they're not top figures, of course. They're not Adele, they are not Taylor Swift, but there are a lot of musicians, they have marginal, minority audiences, you know. If we start from them, give the chance to be listened and being paid off, this would be the thing we can crack, maybe in 20 years.